Wake Up Worlds Quarterfinals Day 3. Top Esports defeat Fnatic to proceed into semifinals. What's next for Fnatic now that they've been eliminated? How much of a gap is there between the Eastern and Western major regions? And join us for a look ahead at tomorrow's match between Gen G and G2.
Ultimate's going to come in as well. Stopwatch to buy some time. 5 members of Fnatic find himself 369. Lost Embrace holding him in place. Caster's going to get shot backwards, flying into the poison trail from Whippo as Caster's sent to the fountain. The Unbreakable is blocking so much damage from Jackie Love, and the shockwave from Nemesis brings Fnatic forward. He chases it down, picking up a kill into Caster. Here comes the rest of Fnatic on the backside. It's a barrel into Hilly, and Selfmade manages to find a kill to 369. Jackie Love is the last man standing, and Fnatic win the fight. Defensive flash away. Jackie Love continues to chase. The resonating strike from Carsa. Self-made packing. And Hylissang escapes to this life. Flash forward from Rekkles. Cannot find the kill. Jackie Love stays alive. The shielding from Karma does it. But Fnatic get out. It's Hylissang. That's the first to fall. And 369 is a beefy frontliner. Flash over the wall from Nemesis. Doesn't really find the torch. Goes golden and Selfmade forced to run for his life. There's not enough damage. There's not enough connecting. And it's top Esports that are winning.
Day 16 of the World Championship is in the books, and we're here to break it all down. It's Wake Up Worlds. Welcome one, welcome all to Wake Up Worlds, our ESPN Esports Worlds 2020 program. He's Tyler, I'm Arda, and we are here with you live on Twitch and YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us. We are here every step of the way until a world champion is crowned. Every day at 11 a.m. Eastern, throughout the quarterfinals, semifinals, and the finals, we will be with you. And at least as it looks, as it pertains to the finals themselves, we have one less European team involved. After an absolute banger of a series, many people said TES would go 3-0. And in a way, Tyler, they did go 3-0 in a way that we definitely did not expect. I don't think anyone predicted the first ever reverse sweep in world's history. I think you're muted, Tyler. We're just gonna unmute. There we go. There we go.
Back. I was screaming for the show over how crazy that series was. So my producers told me to shut off my mic, but I did predict a 3-2. I actually did say, you can look at the tapes, guys. You can look at my Twitter. I did say that Fnatic would take 2 games. I did not think it'd be a reverse sweep. I did not think they would get out to the 2-0 lead. I thought it would be more of a slugfest back and forth. Fnatic trying to, it would be like 1-1, 2-1, 2-2, and then finally TS would pull away in the end. The reverse sweep, I never thought that would happen in a million years. I really did think when it was up 2-0 Fnatic, I really did think the European faithful would be proud today. And I think they're proud overall. I think even with this loss, the European faithful, the Fnatic fans have a lot to be happy about. But I really did think they would get over the line after they got up 2-0. But it's times like these where really when you're back against the wall, you're the favorites of the tournament alongside Damwon. Millions of people in China are watching you. Maybe over 100 million are watching you. If Top had lost the series, it would have been backlash upon backlash for all 5 players. But the resiliency they showed, especially Karsa, who had a woeful first 2 games, and I thought he looked like an old man playing against LeBron James or like a in the prime Selfmade who was just dumpstering Karsa, making him look like a fossil of the old times. Bust out the Lee Sin in game 3, bust out the Nidalee in game 4, and comes alive and just takes over the series when his team needed him the most. And this is going to be one of the most memorable best of 5s in World's history, not only because of the reverse sweep, but just the antics, the flashing of the emote of Hillsong in game 5, flashing the IG emote before Jackie Love, puts on his dancing shoes and just dodges 12 different skills. Mithy eating as the camera breaks to him in game 5 while the rest of his coaches are face palming and he's eating and just watching the game. Like, so many good, fun moments and just 5 banger games where Fnatic is a team, and I said this yesterday. I said this would not be a DRX versus Damwon series where Damwon just kind of oppressed DRX and DRX went out without a fight. They rolled over. They kind of just bled out and got cut 1,000 times and just never really put up a big fight. I said if Fnatic goes down, they are going to go down swinging, and that's just what they did. Even in defeat, even in the 3-2 series, even in the reverse sweep, they left it all out there, and all 5 of those players went down with their fists up, throwing out punch after punch, and they were put down by a better team. Could be one of the better teams of all time in League of Legends history in terms of talent. They're just chock full of it, experience with Karsa, but they went down swinging, and that's all you can really hope for in these kind of matchups. And you'd have hoped they could have pulled it over the line. If a 2-0 lead, you should stamp the door. You should take one of those 3 games with the 3 games you have in hand. But TES showed resiliency, and Fnatic showed a never die attitude that I just have to respect. They went down with 5 banger of games in a series that we're never going to forget. Very similar to the Misfits series 3 years ago in China, where Misfits was so close to beating SKT. SKT pulled it over a 3-2 series. Same deal here, where Fnatic goes down 3-2 to Top Esports in an iconic series. You just have to say an iconic series, one that's going to hang up there in the pantheon of great League of Legends series.
First of all, Fnatic is in the chat. Please throw them some hearts in the chat. That was a valiant series. It was excellent to watch. They gave us quality entertainment amidst the pandemic. So hearts to Fnatic, a valiant effort indeed.
Banger.
Now a banger, an all-timer, like you said. We got to get to how this changed course. Let's talk about the series itself. Because the first 2 games, we saw some dominant Fnatic play. Bwipo on Singed, the winning team fights around the Baron, Jackie Love looking clueless on the Rift, Yuyanja setting records for most deaths at 15 minutes. Like, it looked dire for TES in those 2 games. So take us through, Tyler. From your eye, what happened between those 2 games and the last 3 games that TES were able to turn it around?
Well, in the first 2 games, it looked like TES didn't understand the meta. They kind of just let Selfmade take over the jungle. Karsa looked like a fossil. His Jarvan game, as Frascarian very succinctly pointed out during the broadcast, it was dumpster levels. It was a terrible Jarvan game. It didn't fit the meta. It didn't fit this current kind of 5-on-5 we're currently seeing in the League of Legends meta, and it just looked like they were behind the step. They just didn't have any kind of understanding of what kind of game was being played in the 2020 World Championship, where they were kind of just letting their bot side get dominated. And a lot of that was not only to Karsa. You can't blame the jungler solely. It was also down to how bad the bot lane of TES was. It was a 2v2 straight up, and Rekkles and Hillsong were battering Top Esports. It wasn't a 3v2. It wasn't, Selfmade just camping and TES, blaming in all chat, like, okay, camping, it's not our fault. This was a straight up just very 2v2, 2 confident bot lanes. Jackie Love is one of the most disrespectful AD carries in terms of his play style. And that's not saying that's bad, right? Like, you want a player that's all confident, who has that disrespect, who will flash forward on Ezreal and try to take you in a 1v1, because that's what makes you a world champion. That's why he won a world championship in his rookie year of Invictus Gaming. He did that today versus Rekkles, a player that he stomped in his first, world championship back in 2018, Fnatic versus IG. Jackie Love took Rekkles outside and slapped him around and said, "Old man, this is my world now. You're an archaic fossil of the past. I'm going to destroy you." He did just that. 2020, 2 years removed, 2 years older from Rekkles. I think a lot of people were expecting a very similar situation where if I pointed out, I thought if Top Esports was going to lose today, it was going to have to go through the top lane of Bwipo and Selfmade. I said that yesterday that Rekkles would neutralize Jackie Love. I think he would, lose gracefully, but I did not see the domination of Rekkles coming in those first 2 games. And that I really wanted to just put a lot of praise onto Rekkles and Hillsong for how well they played those first 2 games and really tipped it into Fnatic's favor, where they did make the job easier for Selfmade to kind of just control the jungle. And Bwipo did not have the amazing game I thought he would have today versus 369, who played splendidly. But yeah, for those first 2 games, it really was the Rekkles, Hillsong, and Selfmade show, just battering that bottom lane. And the TES bottom lane is very confident. They're not going to lose gracefully. Jackie Love is not a player who's going to lose gracefully in lane. He's going to fight you, and he's going to fight you again and again. And that's why, we saw the record-breaking, it was 5 deaths in the first 15 minutes for Yuyanja in the second game of the series on Tom Kent. So the confidence of TES got the best of them in those first 2 games, but it's also the reason why they came back in the series. They never lost that confidence. It would have been very easy for them to tilt off the face of the earth after those first 2 games. But after those first 2 games, they came storming back, and they never tilted. And I got to give them credit for that. Even when they were fighting and losing, I don't think they ever lost confidence that they were the better team.
So, in particular, after Fnatic went up 2-0, Game 3 was a decisive win for TES. But then Game 4, Fnatic looked like they had it in hand at some points. They were so close, Tyler, and then Karsa went into God mode somehow and basically turned it around. Like, what did you see in particular about Game 4 where it got away from Fnatic?
It did look like it would be fast game in Game 4, and that's the game that they're going to kick themselves. Not Game 5, not Game 3. Game 4 was the game that they could have won this 3-1. They had no answer to the Scion for one. The only pure magic damage they had was Galio, the paperweight Galio, who was down 100 CS to Knight's Jace in the first 20 minutes. The Galio that was pretty much just an ultimate bot for, just to help out the side lanes, to help out Rekkles and get him more ahead, where Knight kind of just had free reign over the entire map after the first 15 minutes where they just let the Jays scale. And it was a thing where it felt like they ran out of gas. The series really did remind me of the 2019 MSI series, semifinals, TL versus IG, also included Jackie Love in that, where IG, super favorites, TL, huge underdogs like Fnatic today. I think TL were far bigger underdogs than Fnatic today, in my opinion. I thought IG was going to 3-0 that series. I did think this meta suited Fnatic a lot more than TL did back then, but TL got to the 2-0 start versus IG. And then IG came back in Game 3 and stomped up. And it felt like the momentum was shifting. It felt like it was shifting over to IG. And what Team Liquid did is they had an ace up their sleeve. They brought out the Skarner. They brought out the Lux. They brought out the mid-Lux and surprised IG and put them back on their heels, where in this series it felt like their ace in the hole, the Singe, was thrown out in the first game. And then you kept waiting, right? You saw Cadriel on the cast, and a lot of the other casters being like, Fnatic has to have something up their sleeves, a Veigar mid, or something like a Malphite mid or a Malphite top, something that could bring back the game and make it a bit wonky. Don't make it a full-on 5-on-5 meta, because we saw Karsa come alive. Karsa was in the 4th game on Nidalee, said, I can play this meta. I can be a super god. I can be the 10-1 Nidalee who just mows down everyone. And I think in Game 4, they let it slip away. In Game 5, I think everyone was waiting for that special pick, that Veigar mid or the Malphite or something from somewhere, and it wasn't there. If Game 5 was kind of a straight-up game, and they lost, and it felt like they ran out of gas. And that's nothing to be disappointed about. You're playing against one of the most mechanically gifted teams of all time. 2 of the best 5 players, in my opinion, in the world, in Jackie Love and Knight. Could be one of the best 1-2 punches in League of Legends history. Could be one of the best 1-2-3 punches in League of Legends history, of 3-6 not included into that. And then you add on Karsa. This team is stock full of talent. They were outgunned, and they just didn't have that last bullet to kind of get over the line, where they got those first 2 games, and then it felt like they kind of pinpointed, ban out Nemesis, get Knight his matchups, play around bot and top, let Jackie Love and play his game, try to neutralize the Rekkles. Don't play overconfident. Don't give up, lazy kills in the bottom lane. They did just that. They picked on Nemesis. They got Knight ahead. They got 369 ahead on the Scion, and even the Vladimir had a bit of an influence in the last game. And they just ran out of gas, and there just wasn't that special silver bullet that could have taken them into the semifinals. You were just waiting for that special saucy pick, and it never came.
89% of you selected top esports to defeat Fnatic in our ESPN League of Legends Predictor. Don't forget that it's free to play, espn.com/League of Legends Predictor. Or if you have the ESPN Fantasy app, you can click on the trophy tab. The ESPN Fantasy app is free in the App Store as well. You can create custom groups. And I, Tyler, believe it or not, am closing in on the top 500. Amazing.
Ooh, I'm 63. I'm in the 99.
Oh, you're climbing. I'm
in the 99 percentile. I've been correct on pretty much every pick so far. I got the JD Gaming wrong. I had them over Suning, but I did have that Zoom would have more kills than England.
Yeah, me too.
that's a bit of a kudos.
Did you have
to me,
Karsa over Nemesis?
Yes, I did.
Me too.
Yes, so
I collected points on the top and Karsa. So
hopefully G2 can.
do you have G2 in caps? Because I have G2 in caps.
I have G2 in caps.
Okay.
Hopefully Europe can survive one more day to get me into a good position.
Just for our bracket.
Yeah, for my predictor, I need them to win tomorrow. So I think they have a good chance.
Speaking of numbers, let's get to our player ratings. This is where we look at this series only. This is not anything previous to this, nothing about the group stages, only the quarterfinal matchups. Here are the ratings that we give to the players. And as we take a look at Tyler's ratings for top esports, I would like to ask this question as you go down the list and adjudicate the numbers you've given. Is there any concern from what happened this series? Is there more, wow, TES can bleed? Or are you more impressed with the fact that they bounced back?
I am more impressed that they bounced back, because even if they came back through Jackie Love or 369 or Knight, I would have still been very scared of them in a potential final versus Damwon or G2, or even their semifinal versus Suning, where I don't know if I could really respect Karsa in this meta. He's a brilliant player. He's one of the most experienced players in all of League of Legends at this stage. He's been to numerous world champions, numerous MSIs. He's been through it all. He's an intelligent player as they come. One of the highest game IQs we see in League of Legends. But I didn't know if he had that bite to him, that killer instinct, Arda, that I've always liked to bring up. I talked about that with Bjergsen. I want that killer instinct of Bjergsen. We did not see that killer instinct of Bjergsen. Today, game 4, with the game on the line, with the series on the line, with their their legacies on the line. If they go home to back, or stay in Shanghai, they're not going home on a plane. But if they leave that arena, they're going to go on Weibo, and their legacies are going to get tarnished, losing to Fnatic, this super team of top. They were supposed to go to the finals, bar none. They were supposed to lift the Summoners Cup, and they put it all on Karsa to carry on the Nidalee, to make an influence early on that Nidalee, and he went God mode, as Ender pointed out in the cast. He went full God mode. And I am more excited about them because Jackie Love had a terrible day. You're not going to see Jackie Love have these kind of days more often than not. He came alive by the end of the series, but I do think this was an off day for Jackie Love. For the most part, in the group stages, you could very much say that Jackie Love was the MVP of the group stages. He was all dominant on the Senna. He looked like just on another level of every AD carry at the tournament. He slipped up a lot today, but they survived. And that's kind of the scary thing about TES, is that even if you lock down Jackie Love and he has a terrible day, you have to worry about Knight. You have to worry about Karsa. You have to worry about 369. And the bottom line, as you see, I gave them 6 and 5s respectfully, but there's a team that if you lock down one lane, there's 2 other lanes with a great jungler in Karsa, a very intelligent jungler in Karsa, someone who doesn't tilt, as we saw today, that he can always get those 2 lanes rolling. So even when Jackie Love and the bottom lane had a bad day, 369 and Knight had great ends to the day. And I think 369 for me was my personal MVP of the series throughout. Just an amazing performance by him. The third player, the third head of the beast of top esports, where Jackie Love and Knight get the praise more often than not, and they deserve it. I think they are a bit of a level above 369. But if he continues with these performances at the world stage, you would have to say he's right up there with those 2 players, and he could, in his own right, be a top 5 player in the world. So I think his solo kill on Whippo turned the series and turned the ties, and his Scion really turned the momentum onto top side. So he's my MVP of the day. Just excellent play.
Yeah, it's crazy to think. It's almost like a tale of 2 series, right? Like games
definitely.
1 and 2 versus games 3, 4, and 5, and the ratings would be so much different if we separated them. But we can't, because it's the same series. And so Yuyanja setting a record for most deaths in 15 minutes in one game. And then meanwhile, game 4, Karsa just going super Cyan and going 10-1 and 7 on Nidalee was incredible. So that definitely contributes to the numbers. How about for Fnatic? Again, this is a tale of 2 series, so including the reverse sweep portion of it, but also factoring in the first 2 games, how do you adjudicate those players?
So I gave Whippo a 6, Selfmade an 8, Nemesis a 5, Rekkles an 8, and Hilly Song an 8. For Selfmade, Rekkles, and Hilly, those were the 3 players that really got them those first 2 victories. Those were the winning points, the win conditions. Rekkles kind of setting it up early, basically saying, I am not going to let Jackie Love make a fool of me again, and just taking those solo kills in the first game really set up Fnatic for success and kind of carried them those first 2 games. Selfmade ran over. I said it on Twitter. He bulldozed Karsa, and he made Karsa look like, he looked like a fossil, like a player that was washed up in those first 2 games. And if they closed out 3-0, Karsa would have left the World Championships with a far disappointing tournament, and he would be remembered for this kind of this stark loss, especially after last year in 2019 when RNG, a team he was also on, failed to make it out of the group stages, losing to Fnatic and Rekkles. So the fact that Karsa could turn around is great for him, but I still give a lot of kudos to Rekkles, Hilly, and Selfmade. I think they had excellent series overall. Even in loss, I would have to give them 8. All 3 of them 8s. I can't give them a 9 just because those last 3 games were lacking. Selfmade's Kha'Zix. I said on Twitter, this felt like a disrespectful where he's like, I'm going to dunk on you, Karsa. You are done. You pick Lee Sin. I'm going to pick Ka. I'm going to straight up out kill you in the jungle. I'm going to out batter you in the jungle. And it didn't happen, but I still give them 8s. Bwipo is 6. Not the best day. Wide Bwipo happy. Wide Bwipo sad. And then for Nemesis, we're going to talk about Nemesis more later and kind of the situation Fnatic is going into in 2021. Should they make changes? I think Nemesis overall had a very strong group stages, but I think his champion pool got zeroed in on a lot in the last 3 games, and he wasn't able to really keep up with Knight. And Knight was our number 1 player coming into Worlds. There's no embarrassment losing to Knight, but Nemesis just wasn't able to keep up with one of the best players in the world. And it's a situation where this was a meta where I felt it really enabled Fnatic, and it was not a meta where it was hard carry mids. This is a hard carry jungle meta where mids can play more, utility and play more about, tipping over the lanes of TF and Galio. And you don't necessarily need to be the carry. Just play Orianna, farm up, hit your ultimates, use the ball to protect the carries that you need. And I think even overall, Nemesis wasn't up to the goal today. And I think him and Bwipo, the solo lanes of Fnatic, were the tipping points that weren't able to get them over the line. If one of those 2 players have a big game in 3, 4, or 5, I think Bwipo was close on the gameplay to maybe getting to that point, but by then the game was already tipping to TS's side. So those 2 solo laners, I think, had decent days, but not good enough to be one of the best teams in the world, and maybe one of the best teams of all time mechanical-wise.
Mm-hmm. So TES move on to the semifinals. They will be facing Suning next week. And of course, we have one more quarterfinal spot or semifinal spot, I should say, to determine one more quarterfinal matchup. That is between Gen G and G2. That is happening tomorrow. And of course, we will be live following that game to break it all down for you and give you a very short semifinal preview, because we will have a semifinal preview show next week. Now, we bid happy trails to Fnatic, and we talk about Fnatic and their future, as we do certainly whenever a team gets eliminated in the postseason here at Worlds 2020. This is a very interesting one, Tyler, because the identity player becomes a free agent now. Essentially, Fnatic season is over, and now we turn our attention to Rekkles, who has essentially been with Fnatic since 2012. He is their identity player. He is the guy that people identify Fnatic with. He is the face.
Franchise.
He is the one.
The franchise. He's
player.
the franchise, yeah.
He is the guy. And now he is a free agent. And certainly there will be negotiations. But if you're Rekkles, of course you're going to be prudent as well and think what else is out there for me in terms of deals and whatever. And you look at his resume, and you look at Fnatic's resume, and you see a Worlds final, and you see 4 domestic LEC/EU LCS championships. You certainly don't see a Worlds victory, and now you see a quarterfinal exit in 2020. So what do you think happens between the relationship in Rekkles and Fnatic in the offseason?
I can't really say to what the personality is between, Fnatic and Rekkles. If I'm Fnatic, I want Rekkles back. He is the face of our franchise. We are the most popular Western team alongside G2 and TSM. Cue the 0-6 TSM jokes there, but you need to keep your franchise player. There's perks on G2, there's Bjergsen on TSM, there's Rekkles and Fnatic. And we saw what happens when Rekkles leaves Fnatic. It didn't go that well, and I think both sides will come to an agreement, and I hope they do, because Rekkles showed he still has a lot in the tank, and I think he played one of his better best of fives today, even in a loss. So I think his legacy is clear, and I think this loss for Rekkles doesn't kill. I think it actually ups his legacy. Very similar to like a Jimmy Butler in the NBA Finals versus the Los Angeles Lakers, where yes, the Miami Heat lost, but I think the legacy of Jimmy Butler and how hard he fought in those games he took over that got the Heat the win, even against astronomical, gigantic odds against them versus the Lakers. Very similar to Rekkles and him taking over those two games to really get Fnatic those two wins over TES. So I think Fnatic stays with Hillsong and Rekkles, hopefully, if they can come to an agreement, pending, right? Like if they can get their agreement, I think they keep the bottom lane. I don't think they look for an upgrade or for a new young talent. I think if you're a Fnatic fan, I think I saw a lot of it on social media, a lot of it on Reddit. I think everyone's eyes are on Nemesis. And here's actually a little fun fact for you, Arda. I think you'll really enjoy this one.
Okay.
The European LCS, which is now called the LEC, started in 2013. 2013 Fnatic's mid laner was Xpeke, the legendary Xpeke. 2014, Xpeke had his second year on Fnatic in the European LCS, starting mid laner. 2015, Xpeke leaves. He steps down. He creates his own organization in Origin, and they bring in this young, up-and-coming mid laner named Fevin. Fevin and Fnatic make a semifinal at Worlds in 2015, also an MSI semifinal in 2015. And then Fevin comes back again 2016, and he's the starting mid laner. After 2016, after his second year, he leaves. 2017 comes, and there's this young little guy, a 17-year-old kid named Caps. And Caps becomes the mid laner of Fnatic. And Caps goes to the World Finals, has a quarterfinal in 2017, then the World Finals in 2018 as the starting mid laner of Fnatic, 2 years. And at the end of 2018, he leaves for G2. 2019, another young up-and-coming mid laner from Slovenia, Nemesis, comes in. And for the last 2 years, he has been the starting mid laner for Fnatic. So since the European LCS/LEC has begun, every 2 years, the mid lane position of Fnatic, the starting mid lane position, changes, Arda. And the 2 years for Nemesis are up. And unlike the other mid laners we talked about who've gone to World Finals, World Semifinals, even Fevin made a World Semifinals and an MSI Semifinals, Nemesis has gone back-to-back 2 quarterfinal appearances at Worlds. You can say the competition they rolled into was difficult. But again, they finished the number 2 seed. You're going to get tough opponents as number 2 seed. 2021 comes up. Will he break the curse? Will he become the first mid laner for Fnatic in this the European LCS/LEC meta, or this formation, to make it past 2 years as the starter of Fnatic? That's the big question. And is it worth to look for a younger player? Is it worth looking for an upgrade if you can find one? That's the question that I have for Fnatic in the offseason.
Very interesting. I love the symmetry of that.
Yeah.
So the math brain in me is already assuming a new mid laner is on the way. If you believe in number theory, correct. Yeah, if you believe in that, then congratulations, Felix. You are the new mid laner for Fnatic. Actually, his contract is up at the end of the his contract's up now too. It's Rekkles, Hylissang, and Felix if you're including substitutes there.
Yeah, Nemesis does have one more year, but
he does.
After this performance, is there a ceiling, Arda? Is there a ceiling when you have players like Knight's not getting any older? Like he's not gonna this is his prime. Like we not even be in Knight's prime. He is still a young 19-year-old kid. You have Showmaker, you have BDD, you have Chovy, you have young mid laners in China and Korea, Quad, and there's so many up and coming mechanical god mid laners. And this was a meta where Nemesis could excel in, right? This is not a hard laning mid 1v1. I'm gonna pick Akali, you pick Ari, we're gonna fight to the death. Like this was a very acceptable and this fit all of Fnatic's playstyle and personality. So is there a way to upgrade? Is this a player, Nemesis, that you can believe that can take the next step up? Because I think he's a really good player. I don't know if he can hit that ceiling of a Showmaker or, a Knight or, a Caps even. Like we have to talk about Caps in this equation. These players that can get you to a grand final. Can Nemesis do that?
That is a very tough question that Fnatic will have to answer going into free agency. And to be honest with you, it sounds like the mid lane market if we're ignoring, like we had a long conversation about Chovy and his future. That's available in our archives, YouTube/ESPN Esports. If we ignore the pandemic or the complications that the pandemic would bring in terms of importing talent, etc., and we also ignore the personal wants of the players, and if we do believe that these top stars would want to come to Europe to play, Fnatic have a big decision because it sounds like there are a lot of quality mid laners on the market this year. So
I love young mid laners. I don't think Fnatic would go for a Chovy. I don't think they would go for an established star. I think they would continue on what they've been doing since Xpeke with the Fevin, Caps.
You think so?
Nemesis. I think they would look for the European regional leagues, and I think they would look for a young 17, 18-year-old mid laner that could come in and kind of hopefully be the next Caps, the next Fevin. And I think Nemesis has had a great career. You can't scoff at 2 back-to-back quarterfinal appearances at Worlds. NA hasn't made it to the quarterfinals of Worlds in the last 2 years. So he's done better than the entire region of North America, right? Like, he's done well. But for Fnatic, where you saw the peak of Fevin, where he got them to a semifinal, almost a final, where he almost got to the MSI final and lost 3-2 to SKT. Cap, we obviously saw his peak going to a grand final at Worlds. And Nemesis, I don't think he's hit the same highs as those 3 players. Even in Xpeke, when he was back on the team in 2013, 2014, it really has been a G2-dominated era in Europe since Nemesis has taken over. So I think there's a lot of decisions to be made. And I don't know. I think Nemesis has earned a spot on this team. I don't think he should get cut. I mean, I think maybe you bring a 6th player. You bring a 6th player to maybe like a Magic Felix, someone maybe a bit younger, a 17, 18-year-old player from the European regional leagues to fight for that starting job. But I don't know the ceiling of Fnatic. If this was the meta, Arda. This was the meta where if they get past top esports, there's a chance they can make the final. I think they could. I think them versus Suning would have been a very close series. And then if they make the final, who knows what happens? They could have had the Cinderella one because this was their meta. And look back on the tapes, I have not changed my opinion on Fnatic at all. I've always said that they were going to be really good in this meta, and I picked them to be a 3-2 loser today. So they come home and they lost in their meta with, the jungler being the main star and self-made performing so well. I don't know what happens when they come into a meta that's focused on the mid lane and how Nemesis stacks up versus the Knights and the Chovies and the Caps of the world.
Tyler, I got it. G2 lose at Worlds.
Oh, no. No.
Cap stands up, takes off the G2 jersey, already Fnatic jersey underneath, swerve all along. The long con. Con. Caps was sent by Fnatic to infiltrate G2 from within. The ultimate rivalry move.
That'd be beautiful. I think even Carlos would applaud that. I think Carlos would applaud. He'd be like, "Wow, you are great. You are
all the lane swaps, all the good words, all in the garbage."
Oh man,
Cap saunters back to.
That would be crazy. And I think that's funny. I think Carlos would enjoy that. But I think for looking to 2021 and kind of end this segment, if you're a Fnatic fan, I think you can run these 5 players back, and I think you get back to a quarterfinals next year at Worlds. I would still not say you're a favorite to make the semifinals or finals unless you get a very lucky draw, like you get a number 1 seed and get to play weaker teams, or if the meta is this specifically tailored to your needs and your play style, and it's around self-made again, where I would say then maybe again you can make semifinals or finals. But I think
that's not enough, though.
Yeah,
like I think you said, it's not enough.
No, if you want quarterfinals, if you want maybe a lucky stars aligned semifinals, this is the starting 5 for you. And I really do like this Fnatic team. They never stop fighting. They never stop giving up. They never give up, to be more succinct. But is that what you want? Is you're a Fnatic fan? Are you happy being a quarterfinalist, maybe a semifinalist at Worlds? Or will you want to beat back to the 2018 days where you were a world finalist, a favorite in the world finals to a lot of pundits, with Caps, a super carry mid laner that you could put against a rookie or a Chovy or a Faker, and you could say, he can go after these guys. He can play these guys. You cannot ban out Caps. He will go toe-to-toe with these guys. Nemesis, I don't know. And it's an interesting conversation because, mean, last year FBX Doinby is not he's not a caps or a faker, but they played around his style so well, and that meta fit them so well they could win a world title. So never say never, but is there a ceiling there? I think that's the question that a lot of fans are asking themselves after the series and watching Knight just demolish Nemesis in the last 3 games.
Well, free agency is certainly going to be very interesting, and we will have lots of announcements and coverage regarding free agency. Follow us on Twitter, ESPN_esports, and of course, all of our written coverage at ESPN.com/esports. This series that just concluded between TES and Fnatic, where Fnatic were reverse swept for the first time in World's history, will certainly ignite the ever reoccurring conversation where League of Legends competitive fans love to compare the strength of the East versus the strength of the West. And we were in a situation where, on paper, the overwhelming favorites coming into the tournament, TES, were on the brink of elimination, but somehow found the way to eliminate Fnatic in a reverse sweep, a very dramatic one. And so now let's turn our attention to that conversation, Tyler. Let's talk about using this as a launch pad, talking about the gap between East and West. Remember, years ago, we would talk about the gap between South Korea and the rest of the world, and now that has shifted to East versus West. Looking at this series and how close it was, did this change the conversation for you at all?
Not really. Again, this fit Fnatic so well. I thought this would be a 3-2. I know a lot of people are saying, no one thought in a million years Fnatic had a chance. Like me and a few other pundits who actually watched the games and have studied the meta and studied how TS has looked kind of awkward in the meta, thought Fnatic did have a fighting chance. And I think really the gap here is, and I think Europe's doing a really good job about this, is all about the scouting and investment in young talent. I mean, let's be clear here. No one's beating China in terms of the next generation of stars. They're going to have golden generation after golden generation coming through because their academy system has I believe 25 teams all around China, different leagues. You have the super server. You have 10 servers in China. It's just it's an embarrassment of riches, Arda. They have so much money invested. And here's the thing: China's profitable. They're the only profitable esport league in League of Legends. Like maybe one of the only profitable esports ventures in all of the world, really, where the money they put in is actually coming out. So they can invest money in the next generation. They can invest in the 16-year-old kid, in the boonies who, has a crappy computer but shows promise, right? They can scout out that kid and they can take that young kid and turn them into a world champion. Look at Huang Feng. Look at his story, Otto, where he is a 12 years old, abandoned, his mom and dad leaving him basically being, with no actual path to glory or actual, path to actually becoming a professional player. And he found a way because of the vast structure of the secondary league and the development system in China, where there's so many teams and there's so many avenues for these players to grow. And Europe's doing a really good job with the European leagues, where you have Polish leagues and the French league and the Spanish league. And we're seeing players like Larson and Finn and Inspired, like we saw with Rogue and Mad Lions and those players coming up. And I think we're going to see a lot more of the European, the LEC looking at regions like Turkey with, the rumored Armut pickup by Mad Lions. And we're going to see a lot more infusion of this young talent. And I do think it's becoming an arms race, right? Where I don't think we're going to see, unless you are the tippy top, if you're a faker or if you're a team that is really elite, world class, and you can extend your lifespan in League of Legends to 3 to 5 plus years, 5 years plus if you're a faker type level player. But I think we're seeing more and more rookies every single year at Worlds because of the development systems put in place by China and is how much young talent is coming through the system in Europe as well. And when you look at South Korea, they are also going through that same system with the revitalization of their academy leagues and having, the trainee players that usually would not get any playing time now have their own academy league coming next year with the franchising of the LCK. And I think we're going to see a lot more young Korean talent pop up from the scene as well, seeing from, the success of, Naguri and Chovy and Showmaker and how they've really revitalized that region. And then you look at North America, and we're trying to still figure out how to, get more than one rookie to Worlds or more than two rookies. Where we got to speak in tactical, but yeah, it's looking at. I think the gap is far more that it's Europe, Korea, and then China is a bit above those two. I think maybe Korea can catch up, especially with how big the game is in South Korea and the new academy leagues. And then the gap is North America, where we are hamstrung of bringing up new talent. Scouting Greenlands is enough. We need to revitalize our youth system and our investment in scouting and finding people to raise up the next generation, which Europe, China, and South Korea are already in the midst of doing, especially China. And that's why I think China, and I said this years ago, I always thought China would become the #1 superpower in League of Legends just because of the money, the population, and just the vast development of their secondary league. When you have 25 Academy League teams and so much talent coming up through the pipelines, it's really hard to stop.
We had a whole conversation about NA and offered some solutions on how to improve the NA League of Legends ecosystem. That is also on our YouTube channel /ESPN Esports. The one thing I do want to mention about this conversation is, and this has been the case for years, this is not a new point, but it's very important to mention here, is that League of Legends and esports in particular, but certainly League of Legends leading the way here, is essentially a national sport in China and South Korea. That cannot be overstated. The fact that it is so revered and important, it is placed upon it in the mainstream, in the zeitgeist of people. It is normalized. And I'm not saying that's not the case in North America, but it is definitely not to the same degree.
It's not to the same degree.
It could be in the process, but it's definitely not there. It is a work in progress, particularly in North America, but in China and South Korea, it is already there. And that is important because there are far more children dreaming of being esports competitors in China and South Korea, not just due to population, just even per, if you were looking at it as a proper ratio, there would be more people dreaming of those jobs or wanting to grind those jobs and seeing a more clear path than you would in North America for certain.
It's like I like to bring up, like, I think you can agree on this point with me, Arda, is that it's like the basketball, right? In the 80s and 90s, America destroyed everyone in basketball, and people ask why. Why are Americans just better at basketball? It's because when we grew up in America, or even Canada for that example, and I think Canada is growing into this aspect as well, you walk outside as an American kid and you're going to walk through parks with basketball hoops hanging up almost every direction. It's just a thing that's instilled in you by playing it in kindergarten and in first grade and second grade. Basketball's been around these players' lives or these kids' lives forever. And it's a thing where you just grew up in this atmosphere of playing basketball and those players having the chance to become pro basketball players if they fit the mold or have the talent for it. Very similar to China and Korea, where you walk outside, and I've been to both countries for the World Championships, and you walk every which way, and you walk in and you bump into a PC cafe, a PC bong in China or South Korea, where people are playing online video games for hours on end, and it's just a culture. It's the culture of these countries. China and especially South Korea have these online gaming cultures, and it really, you grow up as a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 8-year-old, 10-year-old kid, and what you do after school is you go to the PC bong with your friends and you spend 5 hours, spending a few bucks to eat some ramen, eat some food, play some games, get some energy drinks in you, get some hot six in you, and Hot Six is a great energy drink, Arda. If you go to South Korea,
I didn't know what that was.
Oh, Hot Six. It's one of those. It's one of those popular energy drinks in South Korea, Arda. Hot Six. It's excellent. Please sponsor us, Hot Six. Great drink. Fully recommend it. Hot Six.
#ad.
Yeah, #ad.
We are not sponsored by Hot Six.
One day maybe, but no. But overall, it's instilled in you as a young kid in China and South Korea. It's a PC gaming culture. Where in North America, what kind of culture is gaming in North America, Arda, currently? It's the consoles. You grew up playing, Call of Duty. You grew up playing, the Nintendo Switch. You grew up in that kind of console culture where we're much more based on consoles in North America. When the first thing you think of when you talk to someone who doesn't know video games about video games, they think of Halo. They think of PS4. They think of the Xbox. They don't think of League of Legends. They don't think of the online element. They don't think of the PC gaming. In South Korea and China, that's entirely different. In South Korea, gaming is the PC culture. China, it's the PC culture. I think even Europe, it's growing far more. It's a lot more PC culture. And countries like Sweden, the PC culture has been there for the last 2+ decades with the success in games like Counter-Strike. North America, we're still a console-centric country, so maybe one day we'll have the infrastructure in place, and I think we do have the money and the sponsorships in these leagues, especially the LCS, to grow and find new talent and breed new talent. But we're still years off from really competing with a China or a Europe or a South Korea when it really comes to breeding new talent. Maybe we'll get lucky. Like you can get lucky with a player like Blabber, or you can get a team to come together and the stars align, and you get these young gods, and you can get a 5-stack that can hang with these teams. But it's far more unlikely than the respectable pipeline that these other 3 regions have created. So the gap is there, and it's all about breeding the new generation. And South Korea is getting there with the Academy League. Europe's already doing it with their regional leagues, and China is far ahead of everyone with their just myriad of different ways to become a pro in China. So that's the gap, Arda.
Before we go, let's give a quick preview of Gen G taking on G2. Europe's last hope at Worlds rests on the shoulders of Carlos and the boys as they now take to the Rift and face Gen G in what will have to be, pardon me, I got choked up thinking of Carlos in a suit being president of the West. They will have to defeat 2 LCK teams back-to-back in order to make it to the finals of the World Championships, where they would have to vanquish an LPL team, their Kryptonite, in order to win it all. So what do you make of this matchup? It looks like G2 might be the slight favorite on people's scorecards, but how do you think this matchup fares, especially after Suning's impressive win in their quarterfinal, in their last matchup? Or pardon me, in Gen G's way to make it here. I'm looking at the highlights.
Bad news, I predicted TS to beat Fnatic 3-2. I also predicted Damwon to snowball 3-0 versus DRX. So if you're fans of the teams that lost there, I'm sorry to you. Good news, though, is I predicted a 3-1 victory here for G2 over Gen G. I think, for me, it all comes down to the bot lane. Can you neutralize Ruler? Can you win in the mid game and make him and win these games before the Elder Soul fight, or the Elder Drake, or the Soul fight, or a 35-minute Baron fight where Ruler is going to have his 4, 5, 6 items? And if Ruler gets to those 5, 6 item plateau, I would say Gen G is going to win this series. If it's slow, Gen G will win. They will win this series, and I think Ruler will be the MVP of it all. But if G2 can win the early game, they can get those Rift Heroes. They can snowball the top lane for Wonder. If they can get Caps going in the mid lane. If Yankos can take control of the jungle versus Klid, who I don't think he's had a great tournament, then G2 should win this series. I think their advantages are all over the map, except the bot lane. I think Perks and Mickey X are good enough to neutralize Ruler. I said this yesterday about how Rekkles is good enough to neutralize Jackie Love, and we saw that they just did better and actually just won the bot lane matchup. If that happens tomorrow, where Perks and Mickey X just win the bottom lane versus Ruler, it's 3-0. G2 should win this series 3-0. It should be fast and easy. But if Ruler can stay around, and if they can play to the win con of the world's MVP of 2018, they're a franchise player, Arda, the player that Gen G's built the empire around, the former world champion Ruler. Gen G can win the series, but I think G2 is smart enough, they're fast enough, and they have the veteran experience to know how to stop Gen G and not let them get to that late game. Hopefully they play a lot more clean than they did in the group stages, because if they play like they did in the group stages, Gen G could win the series, especially if you do have these, 35, 40-minute back-and-forth games where I do think in the hands of – if you put the ball in the hands of Ruler in the 40-minute mark, he is going to win more often than not. So G2 for me is favored. I think they should win, but never count out Ruler. He is one of the best players of all time. He is a former World's MVP. He is up there as one of the best AD carries of all time. And if he wins his second world title this year, you could very well say he's the greatest AD carry of all time and the second best player of all time behind Faker. If Gen G can do it. I don't think they can, but if Gen G wins the world championship again, it's going to come off the heels of another excellent, almighty Ruler performance.
Chat's asking you to curse Gen G, so can you predict them to win, please?
I think that Gen G will win this series. Actually, Arda, thinking about it, how good Gen G is, thinking of how powerful Ruler is, just thinking back of the 2018 when Ruler almost single-handedly won the World Championship for Samsung Galaxy over SKT. I do think Gen G. Yeah, let's go with it. Gen G 3-2 over G2. Let's give the European fans with one. I'll curse them for you. I'm thinking of Ruler. Ruler is going to win out on the day. Congratulations, European fans. This is your Christmas. No thanks needed.
So that matchup happens on Sunday. We will be live right afterwards at 11 a.m. Eastern to break down the last quarterfinal matchup. Next week, we will be live 3 days before on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So Friday is going to be a full semifinal preview, and Saturday and Sunday we will have post-game shows for both matchups. Of course, the semifinals, it's TES taking on Suning, and Damwon versus the winner of tomorrow's matchup between Gen G and G2. I have a final thought, Tyler. If you don't mind, I'd like to start.
Take the floor.
So Fnatic lose the series in heartbreaking fashion against TES. And you could see the look on their faces as they're sitting there at the post-game press conference, the post-series press conference. Bwipo is dejected. The whole team is dejected, but in particular Bwipo, because he's certainly among the most animated players on that team. You can see him with his head in his hands. You can see him slouching in his chair. You can just see him and his teammates completely dejected, maybe going so far as to say they didn't want to be there. But the point is, they were there. And they answered questions, they fielded queries from the media, and they sat there as long as they needed to sit there. And to me, this goes as a perfect example, a shining example. And this is not the first example at Worlds, but I want to give credit to Fnatic for furthering this. This needs to be normalized in esports, not just League of Legends, but esports as a whole. Fnatic are a perfect example of professionals who are being paid, in many cases handsomely, to compete in a professional league. And win or lose, that should come with addressing the media. Now, yes, there are certain times where there might be some questionable queries from media members, whatever the case may be. There should certainly be a standard, a journalistic standard, where it, as it pertains to the media and what questions are being asked. It should always be to feed the audience's curiosity and not to pour salt in the wound. Any journalist or any interviewer that is worth their weight in salt will certainly think of that first, as opposed to trying to pour salt in the wound, like I said. That is simply not the case. You have to assume that that is the case when interviews are happening. The fact that we're still in this situation, and it's getting better, to be clear, but the fact that we're in this situation where teams can still outright decline interviews after a loss and no players are made available or nobody's made available, I hope that we are getting to an inflection point where it simply becomes the norm that win or lose, at least one representative will be made available across any team, no matter how devastating the loss. And I'll go back to the point again. At the end of the day, these are professionals that are being paid to compete, and that with it comes the fact that there will be, unfortunately, losses. They are human. We understand that they have emotions, but that doesn't mean that they should be able to skip out on the interviews, because that is doing a disservice to the audience that is watching. And so, though we are getting closer and closer, we're not quite there yet, because there have been instances of many teams. I'm not singling out any teams or any players, and certainly there are emergencies that pop up or whatever the case may be. But the norm should be that win or lose, players should be available so that the audience can understand and further get context to what is happening. And Fnatic should be applauded for all of them sitting there after a heartbreaking series, the biggest and most painful loss of the year, and answering every question that was given to them.
Well said, and I agree on every single point. And as they did in the game, they went down swinging in honorable warrior's death. Afterwards, they took questions, they answered them like adults, like professionals, and I can give nothing but a tip of the cap and my full respect to the Fnatic team. And I cannot wait for one of the greatest organizations in esports to show us what they have for 2021.
We'll be back tomorrow with more Wake Up Worlds after the conclusion of Gen G versus G2. enjoy your Saturday, everybody. Got any plans, Tyler? Are you gonna?
Oh yeah,
anything fun?
so much plans. I have a hot date with this European named G2 and Carlos, and hopefully they can pull through. Or we're gonna have to learn Mandarin and Korean. For the next week's show, we're gonna have to learn a lot. We're gonna have to learn Mandarin and Korean because we're gonna have the LPL finals and the LCK finals. So G2 is our last hope for any Western representation at the Worlds, as per usual. So Godspeed Carlos, Godspeed Wonder, Godspeed Yankos, Godspeed Caps, and Godspeed Perks and Mickey X. The Western hopes are on your shoulders, and I think you're gonna lose. You're gonna lose. Ruler's too good. See you guys later. See you tomorrow show. Gen G can't lose. It's over.
Neon works 24/7, folks. See you tomorrow.